You can tell that their bodies are changing, and their biggest thing is their strength, not just their one rep strength. It's more or less their residual strength. Overall, over the course of a practice, and even in practice one, towards the end of practice, you can see them. They're not the same bodies, in the rep 1 of practice as they are in rep 15 of practice back in the day. Now, I can see them having strength and stamina over the long haul of practice. So, Coach Duval and his staff and Dave Ellis and the nutrition have done an amazing job for these guys in the offseason.
So since this is the guy's second year with you, second year in the program, is it fair to say you guys are going to be maybe less tolerant of repeat mistakes this year as opposed to last year?
Yeah, I'd hope the whole team would be less tolerant of all repeat mistakes. The guys know the scheme, they know the techniques and what we're asking them to do, so certainly there's, the starting point is much higher this year at this point in time than it was last year. So the mistakes, I'm not looking at schematical mistakes. I'm looking at more technique things that we have to get better at.
When it comes to Cam Jurgens, I know Coach Frost said, you don't want to rush him back, you want to make sure he's 100%. But when he gets fully healthy, is it fair to expect him to compete for a starting job being his first year on the offensive line?
Yes, he'll compete when he's healthy.
Why do you answer that so quickly, Greg?
Because he will. Well, he's a good player.
Why is this such the right move for him to go from tight end to center? What do you see out of him that's going to make that the best fit for him?
Well, we saw it as a staff. Coach Frost was probably the pioneer. He saw it first, and he just has abilities and gifts that in some instances you can't really coach. It's like coaching speed. Either you're fast or you're not. Either you're explosive or you're not. Just an explosive kid that is smart, and he has a leadership capability about himself. And when we get him healthy, then certainly he's going to have the talent to compete for that starting spot.
Is that pretty concerning for you guys, or you specifically on the line? You're replacing the center and the starting guard as well.
Yeah, you're always replacing, probably at least 2 or 3 of those guys on a yearly basis. Certainly, you have to find the right mixture of guys and allow those guys to gel, and that's the thing that you're trying to look for as best you can throughout spring and even in the fall camp. The gelling of the offensive line, even last year, with Cole getting hurt and him having to deal with injuries and us having to slide Tanner over, you're just always looking for that gel. Those guys that work alongside one another, connected in more ways than just physically. So that's that's what we're looking for, and that's what you're trying to build. And you have to do it with some unique combinations. But that's what you want in spring ball, is trying to figure out who's the best at what position and plug them in there and see how well they gel with the next guy.
Scott Frost was talking about Matt Farniok's versatility last week. Is he a guy you can tinker with this spring at different spots, or where does he go?
Potentially, if we can, we'll try to move him around. When I say move him around, move him more inside if we can. And the thing that you're kind of handicapped with is, when you move him around, who do you put at the right tackle position to replace him? So that's the thing that you kind of have to play with, so to speak. You don't want you moving a guy around to hurt the production of the line. You want it to be value added when you can move him around and see if another guy can hold up at that spot that he vacated. Also growing him at other spots. So there's a give and a take that comes along with it. And you have to do it at the right times and pick and choose the times when you do it and when you put them in, so it can be a learning experience. Where his learning curve is not just like, holy crap, what just happened? You kind of have to do a good job of manipulating the situation to where you can really get the most learning out of it, the most growth out of all the players involved with the shift.
So it's right to say you'd like him at guard if you can find the right tackles at this.
Yeah, he's versatile. Yeah, I think he can slide into a guard, and he can, play tackle. He can do, a few things which makes him valuable as a player. The biggest thing that he brings to you is his mindset. He plays the game the right way. You have to like what you see on film with his effort and his intensity that he plays with.
Is there a veteran guy who hasn't played as much, who you could say he's got a chance this year? You're seeing something out of him, maybe.
A veteran guy?
Yeah.
Not really.
No.
I don't know what you mean by veteran. I only have one senior in Christian.
But could he be it?
Potentially.
Okay.
We're still working. We're still working, and he's doing everything that he's been asked to do, and he is going to get, an opportunity. But we got to continue to put his butt to the fire and see what he can give us.
There's been a lot of talk about leadership this offseason. You guys lost two pretty vocal guys up front on the offensive line. Are there anybody that you're kind of nudging to say, this is your group now, time to take some ownership?
Well, Matt Farniok has done a great job of stepping up. The nudge. Well, Matt Farniok and Bo Wilson have done a pretty good job of stepping up, both of those two guys. I'm nudging Brendan Hines, and he's doing a really good job of kind of understanding his role. We're working with him from a leadership standpoint, though.
Is it just a personality thing, like he's just kind of a reserved guy that maybe isn't necessarily comfortable taking on?
It's a mixture of a few things, and that being one. But that's a long story, certainly. But no, he's doing a good job, and we're going to continue to progress him in his leadership.
There's a lot of talk about the strength and conditioning, advancements that they've made even in the last 2 or 3 months. What are they doing that you weren't doing here 15 years ago? What's going on in that weight room that wasn't going on back then?
I don't know. I mean,
is it just the data? Is it just the availability of data and analytics stuff?
I thought our weight program was pretty damn good back in the day. I thought we did a damn good job of getting in there and busting our ass. I can tell you that they didn't compete like they compete now in the weight room before we got here. And when I say the only thing I can do is compare what they weren't doing before to what they're doing now. And weights aside, they weren't competing. They weren't. It was something that they just did. I just went and lifted weights. No, the weight room is, that's the damn near the end all be all. As far as the offensive line is concerned, they look at the weight room with a totally different mindset than they did before we arrived here. Now they compete not only with each other, but they compete with themselves. And there's I walked into the weight room maybe a couple weeks ago, and there was a feeling of euphoria, like the guys had competed with themselves and they had lifted, squatted much more weight than they had ever squatted before in their tenure of being here or in their life, and there was a pride about it, and it was a pride that I'd never seen them exude since I'd been here, just that feeling of this matters, this is a big portion of who we are and what we believe in and why we're going to get this program turned around. That's a big deal, because quite frankly, that was what it was when I was here, especially, my first year. The weight room is where I lived, and then, the other portion of your living was on the football field, and then every once in a while you went to class.
I asked the question because I was asking Barrett a similar question, and he was talking about just the science behind it and how it's just so much more developed than it was back then.
Yeah, there's all the metrics and the science, and Zach does a great job with his numbers and all that fancy. I'm just be honest with you, I'm not a big sciencey guy. I'm one of those put the chalk on your hand and let's start moving some weight around, and then we'll talk about all the numbers and the analytics behind that afterwards. Zach does a great job of getting these guys ready, all right, physiologically, physically for the weight room. He measures all. He measures their body readiness. There's a lot of things that data that they collect, all right. So the guys know, all of those numbers and all of that stuff. But more so than anything, they go into the weight room and they put in work. And they leave the weight room and they're soaking wet.
So what did you see recently that you said I hadn't seen it before? What specifically did you see?
I saw the guys excited about freaking going and lifting and busting their ass in the weight room. It's not something that they were doing before. Weight room was just something that they kind of just like, yeah, all right, we got to do this. This is just part of the deal. Now it's, I get to lift weights. I can't wait to get in there and bust my ass in there, because it means something. And quite frankly, a lot of things that we talk about in terms of our technique and our explosive power are the same exact terms that Coach Duval uses in the weight room. So when the guy's clean, then we call it a depth drop. When I'm asking them to roll their hips and strike through a defender on the second step, we call it a depth drop. What are you trying to do? Well, we're trying to drop our hips and roll our hips, hit and lift guys. Well, that's the same exact body movement that you would make in the weight room, to get under the weight. All of those things and the correlation between both makes the weight room even more valid for those guys as they go in there and they attack it.
Yeah, I'm sorry if you already got to ask this, but how different is the dynamic inside your room without Gerald and Tanner Farmer, who were kind of loud leaders? Like, what's different with them being gone?
Yeah, just different guys in the way. Just got different guys in the room. I mean, I told these guys, Matt Farniok and Bo Wilson have done a good job stepping up, nudging Brendan Hymas into a more leadership role. But one thing I can credit Tanner Farmer and Gerald Foster is they did a really good job of showing the younger guys, the next guys up, the way in terms of leadership. So those guys kind of know what's expected of them. And Matt Farniok, more so than anybody, has done a great job of being more the vocal. The thing I really like about Matt Farniok is he's the vocal leader, but then also, he's going to give you some production out there on the field as well. He's going to back up his talk with good play as well. So.
Was he a little quieter when you came in? Do you remember him being a little quieter of a guy?
He was quieter because there were other guys in the room that were the alpha dogs from a vocal standpoint.
When you look at an offensive line improvement from year 1 to year 2, what are a couple of things you measure or kind of look for?
Technique. That's the one and only thing that we look for. I mean, if you can make technique gains, and then I mentioned it earlier, our guys are more equipped with the energy systems to sustain throughout the game, throughout a practice. When we arrived here a year ago, the first period was pretty damn good. Guys moved around a little bit. You could see energy just pop into the pads. By the time the last team period came around, they just didn't have the legs. So those are the things that you're looking to improve technique and then also strength and stamina throughout.
Who are some guys who could have a shot at something?
Well, there's Will, there's Hunter Miller, there's a kid by the name of AJ Forbes, walked on for us last year, done a great job. There's Cam. Right now, those are the guys that are working at center right now. And then there's a couple kids coming in that, we're going to give some shots to.
Scott mentioned Hickson. Is he like a left guard or Trent Hickson?
Hickson is a guard, yes.
Yeah. What have you seen out of him? I mean, not just one practice, but just since you've had him.
Consistency, dependability. He's a dependable kid. He's always on time, doing the right things. Coachable, extremely coachable. All eyes, all ears. No nonsense. He's going to do exactly what you're asking him to do. He's going to work on the things he needs to work on to try to get better. The ultimate team player. Can't ask for a better kid.